Alright, Turn 10, listen up. The deal for the upcoming British touring car game sadly fell through. Now would be a great time to swoop in and get some more cars from the early 2010s to the early 2020s, adding some for free and others as a DLC. The TC group is rather lacking when compared to the GT division, so much so that each race is predominantly the Aldi car. If you were to strike a deal with TOCA, the rights holders to the British touring cars, you would then have the opportunity to add a range of cars to help bulk out the limited field. Not to mention you would also get the chance to add the tracks used in the Championship too, an area on the game that is severely lacking. Starting off with the cars, the majority of touring cars nowadays are predominantly front-wheel drive. We currently only have one car on the game that is rear-wheel drive, the Levorg. However, Ash Sutton's championship-winning Infiniti Q50 could be added to the game, along with Colin Turkington's BMW 330i and 125i. There are many other cars we could see from the pre-hybrid era too, ones that weren't championship winners but still good or interesting cars in their own right. The 2021 Cupra Leon driven by Aaron Taylor-Smith, the 2020 Toyota Corolla driven by Tom Ingram, the 2019 Focus RS driven by Nick Hamilton, the 2018 VWCC driven by Bobby Thompson, the 2018 Giulietta driven by Rob Austin, the unique Proton Persona from 2015 raced by Dan Welch, the 2014 Toyota Avensis driven by Lee Wood. Something to rival the Levorg in terms of uniqueness, the 2014 Honda Civic Tourer driven by Matt Neal, the race-winning Aldi A4 driven by Rob Austin. Having two cars driven by the same driver may be confusing to some on the game. However, Rob was committed to the Aldi for several years, and it just wouldn't feel right to separate the two. The 2013 MG6 raced by Sam Tordoff, minus the sponsors if needed. The 2013 Vauxhall Insignia driven by James Cole. And adding in the Aldi S3 and Chevrolet Cruze from Forza 7 as a free gift to players would also be nice, instead of including them in a DLC. The tracks mentioned earlier can be added from the calendar, finally seeing more British circuits added to a predominantly big racing game. Having just Silverstone and the eventual and hopeful return of Brands Hatch is and will be great. However, there are many great British circuits that not many players have likely raced on. Donington Park, National and GP. Snetterton 200-300. Thruxton. Alton Park International Circuit, the Island Circuit and the Fosters Circuit, Croft and Knockhill to finish the main calendar. Some unconventional or unused layouts that could be added if they are easily obtainable in any way or are able to get them from old files from Forza Motorsport 3 or 4 would be the old 2009 layout of Silverstone GP and International Circuit, a layout that provides much better racing than the new International layout in my opinion. Another circuit that might be hard to obtain, now due to its lack of existence, but would be great to see return and immortalized, is Rockingham with its many different layouts. Another unconventional circuit, but likely impossible, would be the Birmingham Super Pre-Street Circuit, last used in 1990 for the British touring cars. This would just be the beginning of the touring car expansion. The next list of cars would have to be obtained through various other licenses, but adding more cars from World Touring Cars and TCR would also be a great addition. The WTCC Volvo S60 TC1 from 2017. The WTCC 2014 to 2016 Championship winning Citroën, the 2014 Lada Granta, if it's not too controversial, the 2013 BMW 320TC World Touring Car, the 2013 Volvo C30 WTCC, the Renault Megane RS TCR, the Subaru WRX STI TCR, the Lada Vesta TCR, if it isn't too controversial, the Fiat Tipo TCR, and the Kia Ceed TCR, to finish off. Much like before for the British touring cars, we could also see tracks belonging to the WTCC Championship make an appearance, from old and new, as more tracks are desperately needed in the game. The likes of the return of Monza, the return of Sonoma Raceway, the Marrakesh Street Circuit, old and new layout, the Shanghai International Circuit and its many layouts, the Algarve International Circuit, Portimao, Anderstorp Raceway, Imola, Magny-Cours Circuit and the Malaysian Grand Prix Circuit, a track rarely seen on racing games nowadays but would fit right in on Forza Motorsport. There certainly are many more circuits from the World Touring Cars Championship. This is just scratching the surface. However, I feel the return of some tracks and gaining some new and never-before-seen tracks on Forza would be a welcomed trade-off. If Turn 10 wanted to branch off to other touring car championships, they would need to group them into their own categories, similar to how I suggested in my Forza GT video. Firstly, adding the Australian supercars into the TC division, but separate from the British and TCR cars, would be the first thing to do. That way, the two groups can be rotated each race, day or week. If they also wanted to include cars from Forza Motorsport 7, the Volvo Swedish touring car for instance, that too would need its own category of car. They were similar to the DTM cars from around the same years, between 2010 and 20. There weren't many cars from those years similar to the Volvo in Swedish touring cars, but adding them too wouldn't hurt. The Seat, the Saab, the Nissan, the Dacia, the Ford Mondeo, the BMW, the Kia, the Citroën, and the Honda Civic. The TC division would desperately need to be split from one another if these cars were to be added to the group. I cannot stress that enough. It would end up like it was on Forza Motorsport 7, where the TC group wasn't enjoyable as overpowered rear-wheel drive cars were going against underpowered front-wheel drive cars. Similar to how the GT division currently is now with cars racing each other that shouldn't be, but I've already talked about that. Even going as far back as the Super Tourer era and the early 2000s of touring cars would be an amazing addition to the game, bringing many cars back to life that see either little use or don't race at all anymore. I understand this is a lot of cars to not only track down, but to scan, build and design perfectly in whatever software Turn 10 uses. But in the long run, even if we only see half of these, mainly those that were the most popular or well-known at the time, they'd be a great addition and amazing cars to drive in a classic TC lobby.